Ooh, Richard Sharp. Oh man, this dude is mad big time. This episode, woo! I know this episode had a few people um really going through some of their feelings with a lot of the changes that happened in this episode. So, I ain't even gonna wait too long. But I just wanted to give a couple seconds. I know we over here with a little bit of a late start today. Just want to see how many people gonna sneak in here today. Right now, I'm looking right now on the YouTube chat. I know some of you guys be checking us out on Facebook. I'm gonna try to hop back and forth between the two. My setup, I'm working on improving it, but my setup right now, the way I have it, I got like three screens going and everything, but it's a lot to juggle. So I'm gonna do my best. If you guys could just bear with me. But yeah. Anyway, for the most part, guys, thank you for joining us. If you're not catching us live, listen, we do these live reviews. I write up my review, I read them and share them with you guys live on Monday nights. Feel free to join us on YouTube and on Facebook. I'm going to see if I can add Instagram to the feed. But if you want to join in on us and discuss that last episode right after it is on Sunday night, I know sometimes it takes a couple of us some part of Monday to catch up if we ain't catch it on Sunday. So usually by Monday night, everybody's ready to go. Um, so yeah, if you guys want to join in with us, make sure you join us over on Facebook, on YouTube. Monday nights, I usually go live 6 p.m. Eastern. I keep it open for everybody. I'm using chats in both Facebook and on YouTube. We're going live simultaneously, and we're gonna be looking to add Instagram into that mix for the next episode. It looks like some of you guys couldn't wait. Some of you guys couldn't wait. I already see in our chat Richard Sharp. He saw the big change that happened. Whew, man, who saw that coming? Anyway, let's just dive right into it. So, like, normally I go through these with like the good and the bad. I think I'm going to switch up the format a little bit. I want to kind of just talk a little bit about the episode in its entirety from beginning to end. Talk about some of the things that I thought stood out to me in that particular episode, and then, of course, assign a numerical score at the end. Maybe just kind of break up the format between the good and the bad to see if that might be a better way to absorb my feedback on this particular episode. So, the first thing I wanted to talk about is how this episode didn't have any sort of cold opening, right? Like no cold opening whatsoever. I thought that was a little bit different. They kind of broke tradition with what they were doing with some of the last couple episodes. That was okay. I'm not complaining too much. I'm just saying it's a little bit different. One other thing I noticed that was different about this episode was this one was directed by Peter Hoare, Hoar. Not familiar with Peter. I'm going to look up some of his past work, but something that you guys might have noticed is that I noticed and paid attention to the first two episodes of The Last of Us. They were directed by Neil Druckmann, who is like the head of Naughty Dog Games, the actual game developer that made The Last of Us video game for Sony on the PlayStation consoles. And I had no idea, right? This guy actually directed. He probably knows some coding. He comes back and he's directing a live action production for HBO, which, as an artist, it's kind of, you can kind of dabble in other fields, right? Like a person who illustrates can probably dabble in painting, but usually to be show such mastery, such skill in all these different mediums, that's usually not as, you know, it's usually just surprising to me, right? Like, I'm not saying it's not common. I'm just saying it's surprising when I see it, and I really appreciate it here. This show actually goes to show a lot of what video game fans have theorized to be true for a really, really long time. And that's that the cinematic cutscenes and the narrative in some of these video games is on par with what film and television have been doing for years. So a lot of us who have been saying that since Final Fantasy VII with the cutscenes, and again with the Metal Gear Solid franchise from Hideo Kojima, we've been saying for a long time that these video games are really blurring the lines in what storytelling can be and how it could be that we start digesting storytelling. So yeah, I think that it's really cool and awesome to see Neil Druckmann cross over from one genre to the other and deliver like some really cool episodes. But getting back into this particular episode, this one's by Peter Hoare, very different. But let's dive right into it. So this episode, oh, what's up, Derpy Entertainment? Thanks for joining. Yeah, yeah, sticking to the source material works, right? Um, I'm with you on that one. I'm gonna hop on that one a little bit. I was noticing how like at the beginning of this episode, uh, the banter was still there with Ellie and Joel. It was a little bit light. It was a little bit weaker than the last couple episodes. The last couple episodes had me like, like they was throwing haymakers at each other. This one was a little bit lighter. I think they even like reused the joke or something in this episode. Um, it was cool to see the blast from the past, but they do make some changes in here. And like one of the first things that I noticed was that like when they went into that store, um, I was expecting Ellie to go into the store like when they was looking for supplies and Joel was trying to look for stuff that he left behind. Um, I was looking for Ellie to find like a comic book, right? Wasn't that something in the video games? I could swear like in the video games, Ellie was like collecting and reading comic books. At least I thought that was like one of the things that I was doing in the game. Um, but she found like an old Mortal Kombat, and she like accurately described exactly like one of the fatalities, like as if she heard it from someone else. Like, and the fact that she even heard about Mortal Kombat 2 is a little weird to me. That game is like from the 90s, so I don't know who told her about it or why this thing still exists, even in the Last of Us narrative. But it was really comedic to me. I thought it was funny, but I really was expecting her to find some comic books. I'm 50-50 on this one too. So I think that this one was okay. So one thing I noticed is that The Last of Us is really, really good at doing like the jump scare scene setup, right? Ellie was exploring some really dark places. She had that flashlight, and they keep setting these moments up. It's gonna get a little tired if they keep relying on this. They're not there yet, but they're really, really good at it. I like it. I like how they're using these moments with Joel and Ellie to explain some more of the backstory and for Joel's theory on how the pandemic ended and they wound up in this apocalyptic scenario that they're in right now. Now, this episode switches things up. Now, if you guys saw this episode, you probably already know that the narrative shifts away from Joel and Ellie, and instead we focus on two other protagonists in this specific episode, Bill and Frank. Now, I ain't gonna front, like the way the last episode ended with Tess meeting her fate and like things ended on a high action pace, like I really, really, really wanted to see more of Joel and Ellie exploring the world. But I guess they wanted to use this time differently, but I really, really wanted to just like dive into the world. Like I've been waiting for them to get out. Like it's like, you know how like when you're playing the video game and you're doing like that initial hour and you know it's all tutorial, but you know as soon as they get you past this specific area, the game's gonna really take off. And I'm like, I feel like the show is just waiting to kind of strategically place the characters into a certain point before it really, really, really takes off. And I just really wanted to see that in this episode, but they gave us that more, you know, soft, inward thinking type of episode. It was a real big change. Yeah, the random guy. so so thankfully, I know that this kind of storytelling is gonna pay off, right? I'm part of the initiated. So I have an idea of what's going to happen next. Now, for those of you who are new, those of you who catch it on the replay, the initiated are those of us who have played the Last of Us video game, and we think we know where the story is going to go from here. Obviously, this show is deciding to do its own thing. It's making some own twists and turns. I ain't even going to say we know it's going to go from here. We think we know it's going to go from here. We just got to hope, it kind of sticks to the same narrative structure as the video game and progresses from there. Now, elephant in the room, you know, obviously there's been a big change here. Now, one of the things that you guys got to forgive me. It's been a long time since I played the game. The initial game came out on PS3. I think I didn't get around to playing it until like the PS4 remake. I don't remember Bill and Frank being around in the same place, right? Like, wasn't Frank dead? Like, I mostly remember Bill in the game and not Frank. Like, there was some part where like Joel and Ellie had to go through like this obstacle course and sneak through a whole bunch of houses and stuff. And I think Bill was like sending them on a fetch quest. Fetch quest means when you have to go get something for someone else. Bill was like sending them to go get stuff for him so he could trade them a car battery for it or something like that. I don't remember Frank being in the game like at all. Like at all. Oh yeah, Derpy. I see. Yeah. Frank hung himself. Yeah, that do sound familiar. So, like he was dead, right? So, like when Frank popped up in this episode, I didn't know what to expect. I figured maybe they just going to tell us what happened to Frank before he died, right? Like, yes, Frank stole the parts. Bill was like, thank you. MVP right here, Derpy. So, like, I don't that this twist, this twist, it is getting a lot of reactions online, and I've been trying to wrap my head around why they made the change. So, obviously, there's a change here with Bill and Frank uh having a romantic relationship in this show, but I don't know. Like, did they even hint at that in the game? Like, was that something that they just built on? Like, I was trying to wrap my head around like where this was coming from because it felt like it was coming from out of nowhere. And when you watch like the after the episode, they have the make inside the episode, and the creators they talk about like the decision making that goes along with making changes, and they're like, when they come across something that that'll be additive to the story or something to that effect without taking away from the overall narrative, it's an opportunity for them to do something different and catch those of us who are initiated off guard because we expect things to go a certain way and then they just switch things up on us. So it's like, ooh. I remember him talking about him briefly too, but I don't remember him saying anything like them having a romantic connection. I remember them talking about more so like they were working together and they were like co-survivors, but not like romantically. So, it's a change, but it's just catching a lot of people off guard. Now, to be fair, what we do see is it's a love story, right? It's like the equivalent of a video game side quest, right? It's like a little mini movie within a show within the post apocalypse, within the post pandemic world. It's like is nice, I guess, to see like a so I like how they have structurally have this narrative going, right? The two people meeting, two people falling in love, two people trying to survive the apocalypse together, and then seeing two people grow old together. Now that is a touching love story. It is romantic. Um, when that happens, and so from that, I think technically from beginning to end, just their story is nice. Like if you would have told me like this wasn't part of the whole series, if this was like a little side thing or like a little mini movie, or if they even did this like as a in between seasons special, I would have been like, yo, that was kind of fire. But I think it will get a lot of reactions from people because they weren't expecting it, and it being part of a large part of the main narrative. Like it just took out a chunk of like one of our 10 episodes this season, or 9, I forget how many there are. It took a chunk of one of our episodes this season, so some people are going to have some strong reactions to just so much time being devoted to that. Like I said, it is absolutely a side story. It's the video game equivalent of a side quest with this one, but I will admit that it was technically and cinematically nice. Um, like even the way they ended it, like Frank dying is sad, but they had a beautiful life together. It even ends with them getting married. Um, I thought they were just setting it up so that Bill was going to be that older hermit person that we saw in the video game when Ellie and Joel finally made their way to him. Um, but they switched it up again. Yo, yo, I didn't think this whole episode needed to be devoted to the way it went. I thought there could have been a lot more Joel and Ellie in this because there was a lot of stuff for them to do. But I guess this story made more narrative sense than Joel and Ellie making their way through like an obstacle course and running errands for Bill like in the video games, right? I guess this kind of made more sense. But like I said, this was a very, very huge departure from what a lot of us remember from the video game, what a lot of us were expecting from this particular episode. I think as far as like the idea of subverting expectations, if that's what they were trying to do, they nailed it here. They kind of subverted it. Like I wanted some high action thing. I got this slow love story narrative. It was cool. I think my favorite part of this episode were Bill's Home Alone like death traps. Like I think when we started to see what Bill was doing in that town with setting it up and fortifying it and setting it up with trips, like I think the closest thing I thought of immediately for me at least was like when I saw The Walking Dead and Glenn, was it not Glenn? Morgan had that episode. I think it was called Clear. I think that was the episode in The Walking Dead, right? Clear, when Morgan like set up his own town and fortified it with traps for walkers and things like that. When I saw that here with Bill, my mind immediately thought of Morgan in that scene, and I'm like, I didn't think that they were copying. It kind of actually brought along a good vibe. I was like, yo, if imitation is a form of flattery, this is, a hats off to The Walking Dead for what they did with Morgan, because they kind of mirrored that here. Um, nah, I'm with you, Derpy. I'm with you. I would have preferred a lot more action in this episode. I think that what they were doing though structurally and technically, for 10 episodes, like I look at it like this, right? Like the video game is like is what is it? A video game probably takes somebody like 10 to 20 hours to beat from beginning to end. Like 20 hours if you're not really initiated, 10 hours if you're of the initiated, you're going to power through it. Um they have to tell different stories in order to stretch that narrative out, right? So like what works with storytelling in a video game, like they could just set up an area, right? And they can just make it extra hard or have extra challenging puzzles to add time to expand that gameplay. But when it comes to a television show, they have to actually have stuff happen. Now, a lot of stuff does happen in The Last of Us, but when it comes into creating like 10 hours of storytelling with Pedro Pascal and, Bella Ramsey, that might need them to add a little bit more meat onto their story. That's why we're going to get stuff what happened here with Bill and Frank, and we're going to learn more about their story. So at this point, it feels like the gloves are off. Like nobody is safe. Anything can be changed or added in order to expand the story. Now, when we think about what happens next from here, they actually showed some previews to the next episode. Now, I'm not gonna like ruin too much because some of the people watching might not be initiated. So I'm only going to talk to what I saw in the preview. But one of the things that ended in this episode, the way this episode ended, was Joel and Ella. They got the car, right. They went to Bill's house. Bill had already lived his sweet life with Frank. He left a note for Joel and left behind his car keys and a car battery for him to be able to take his supplies and all his ownings and all his belongings, right? That was really touching, really sweet. He left everything behind, and Joel and Ellie start driving off, right? They're heading towards, where did he say his brother was? Utah? It was Utah, right? I think it was Utah. I gotta double check. I gotta double check. I think he said Utah. But yeah, my dude, I think he said he was heading back to Utah or something like that, and he was gonna go look for his brother. And the way that episode ended, and the way the next episode preview was looking like, they're not gonna keep that car for long. Like that car is not gonna be on the road for very long. Like good things don't happen to nice people in this world. So as soon as they get to a certain point, it looked like when they reach the city, they're gonna lose their vehicle. Bad things are gonna happen. I kind of remember what happens next, and obviously the narrative continues to move forward, but we're gonna see some nice high action scenes that are gonna really, really, really push this episode, or at least this series, into more a thrilling pace. Overall, though, I think this was a cute episode. It was nice, contained self story. I don't think it was as good as the first two episodes. Like the first two episodes might as well have just been a movie, right? They should have just played both episodes back to back, gave us those in that form, and we should have just went forward from there. But we got it the way that we did. I think that this episode was okay for what it was. I didn't like the abrupt pace change. I think it should have had a little bit more accelerant, or at least a little bit more action. They tried to do it a little bit in the middle of the episode where they had that shootout, but they didn't really focus on that scene. And I guess that they didn't want to compete with the romantic narrative that they were trying to tell instead. But something was just missing for this from me. Like overall, compared to the last two episodes, it wasn't as good. It was still good. It just wasn't as good. On a scale of 1 to 10, I think I gave the first two episodes like a 9.5 and a 9. I'm going to put this one somewhere around like a 7.5 or an 8. Probably closer to an 8, only because technically it was really, really good, even though I didn't like the abrupt change of pace from the momentum they built in the first two episodes. But overall, I think it was technically a pretty good episode. I'm 50-50 on it as well. I don't know. I don't know what else is going to happen. What else is going to change? What else are we going to see from here? I know that there's still a lot to come. We know Storm Reed is going to be joining the cast soon. Yeah, but overall, I thought that this was a better episode, or it could have been a better episode. It was good, but not great. But that's really all I got for this one. I'll be back again next week. I'll do another live recap like this. I don't know if you guys like this angle. You prefer the other angle. I just really wanted to showcase my comics on the wall. I worked really hard on that, getting this set up for you guys. But Let me know what you guys think next week. I'm going to be live again next Monday at 6. I'm going to stick around in the comment areas on both YouTube and Facebook for like the next hour or so, chat with you guys about this episode. And don't forget, next week we go also go live on Instagram. If you guys like this, you want to see more, please do me a favor. If you're on YouTube, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button. It does a huge, huge, huge help for me to be able to continue to do this for you more and more. If you're on our Facebook page, make sure you like, make sure you follow. I know there's like 14,000. Yeah, we're trying to get to 15,000. We're trying to bring these numbers up because we already got the movie blog army going. And Instagram, yo, we're right there at 1,000. We're right there. I might have to do like a giveaway or something for somebody if they help me hit the 1,000. I got a whole bunch of stuff here that's like I could give away. I got a whole bunch of cool stuff. So let's see. Otherwise, check us out next week, or I'll check you guys later. Peace. Oh, Joseph Pantalone. Yeah, I see that. I see that. Yeah. So that was like a cool little trick he did. It kind of like taught me something. Like I didn't even know about that. Like I knew like I know I was supposed to leave. So Joseph Pantalone just left this comment like he liked how Bill kept the battery sulfur materials um, in the refrigerator to recharge the battery, and how smart that was. Like, yo, I don't I don't even know anything about battery sulfur. The immediate thing that popped in my head is like, I don't know. Some of us like you grew up with like having to change the batteries in the remote long enough, or if you just grew up in a household like mine, at some point in time, batteries ended up in the freezer. Don't ask me how. Don't ask me why. If it was for the Game Boy, if it was for the remote, it was something. Batteries ended up in the freezer, and it just I don't know. It just made sense to me. It just clicked. Like, is this really a thing? Do people really do this for car batteries? Because I definitely did it with a pair of Duracells. Right, like I would throw them suckers in the freezer and try to get back to Tetris or to get back to Super Mario Land. Right, throw my Fireflowers off the floor and watch them bounce to the sky. Like, but yeah, I just wanted to comment on that real quick. Otherwise, yeah, I'm out for real this time. Peace.